Hey, you, wherever you are in the world right now, thank you so much for being here with me. We know that we're living in some crazy times and we know that the world is changing. So let's create a bridge as we travel through one another's countries, removing all labels, coming together as one people, finding our home in one world. And as we do this, this is why our signature talk today is so important. Be free. Today, I am so excited to welcome my guest speaker, Suzi McWilliams. Hi, Suzi.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
You're so welcome. And it's so exciting because you're actually in Scotland and I'm here in the US. So this is really exciting to have this conversation with you. And Suzi is a spiritual entrepreneur, an anxiety expert, meditation and mindfulness coach, an author, a speaker, and really a promoter of all things that are health and well-being. And I love all of that, Suzi. And I know that we talked a little offline before we got started, in this recording today. And I know that you have a really, really great insight to a lot of things that people are experiencing in the world right now, especially, this anxiety of this feeling of discomfort, all of these things. But first, let's go back a little bit and let's talk about how this all started for you.
Sure. Yeah, so I started to suffer from anxiety. The first point I can remember was age 15, and I'd suffered from anxiety and I started to experience panic attacks. So I would hyperventilate and not be able to breathe. And obviously at that age, it's kind of quite alarming. You want to fit in and, you're not really fitting in because you have all this going on. But yeah, I managed to hide it quite well, I suppose. So yeah, it started at kind of age 15 and then that carried on for, almost about 2 decades.
So at 15 years old, you're starting to experience these panic attacks. And I know somewhere in the world right now, there's a mom, there's a grandmom, an aunt, dad, there's somebody who has a 15-year-old and they're trying to understand what it is that's happening. I mean, what was it that was causing these panic attacks for you? Do you know?
Yeah, so now I know. But back then there was never, and I see this with a lot of people that I work with, there was never a one thing that caused it. But now knowing what I know, things like my diet at that time wasn't great. Hormonally, it's quite a lot of changes going on. I put quite a lot of pressure on myself, I think academically, to be the best and to study hard, but equally I wanted to socialize, so I would socialize hard, and I wanted to earn money, so I would work a job, and I was trying to do all these things at 15, and not looking after myself probably as well as I could have, and not really seeking support, I suppose.
And where did that pressure come from? Was that something that you put onto yourself or was that put onto you?
Yeah, no, absolutely self-imposed. My parents were incredibly supportive people with regards to everything. There was never any pressure for me to study or to do that. It was purely self-imposed. And even as, that stress and anxiety developed as I got older, a lot of that was pressure I was putting on myself, expectations I was creating for myself, as opposed to somebody saying, well, if you don't get an A, then this is going to happen. It was purely me. So yeah.
So at 15, when you're going through these anxiety attacks, you said you were trying to hide it. So, I mean, if you had to give advice to your 15-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think to speak up sooner, to try and seek support. and so that you can get a better understanding of what's happening, and to recognize that there are other 15-year-old out there who are equally in as much stress, anxiety as yourself, that you're not alone, that to try and reach out and seek support, and to continue to seek. If it doesn't work, keep searching, don't stop just because one thing hasn't worked.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of kids right now, they're really struggling with, being in lockdown and homeschooling, and their entire circle of friends not being able to, stay with them or, be with them has really upset their environment. And I can only imagine for parents, it's a difficult time as well. And for you, as you said, you would hide these panic attacks. So like, what would you do? I mean, what is it that parents can kind of look for, if their child is going through something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think not today, it is probably, I think there's more awareness around panic, anxiety, depression, all these things than there was when I was younger. So your teen will have an awareness probably of what is going on for them. But they may seek support externally from you. So they may look online, they may go into chat groups, they may be getting support and advice from people who don't necessarily have their best interests at heart, or, it's quite a terrifying time, really, being honest, for teens just now. They are seeking that support and connection, and the way they know how to do that is through this online method. So as a parent, it's having time with your child, away from the screen, doing things together, that your child loves, or even if it is on the screen, gaming with your child, or, getting an insight into their world, because their world is so different from what our world was, and the information that they are receiving constantly can have such a detrimental effect, and false friendships are formed. And I know I wrote a book about my experience, and whilst writing that book, I joined a lot of these chat forums myself, just to see what was going on and how people were feeling, to take myself back into that space. And they're so negative. I had to physically remove myself from these spaces, because it was affecting me, and I have all the tools, and I help people through this. And I just think if people don't have that tools or awareness, it's a dangerous line. So human connection is in person with parents is great, parents, loved ones, etc. Obviously, because of coronavirus, we don't have that there, but ensuring that your children do still have the opportunity to connect with their friends in some way, as well, is really, really, really important. So as much as it's that balance, as much as you don't want them online, if that's how they're connecting with their friends, you need to allow that aspect of things as well, so they don't feel completely cut off from the world that they're part of.
Yeah, and I appreciate your insight on this, because I personally have friends that have children that, are experiencing some of these situations that the world is experiencing with homeschooling. And, it's this push and pull with the parents, because mom or dad is trying to get their kid to be dedicated to learning and their education, but that's extremely difficult because they're just using a screen, and they're, behind a screen. But I also think too, what you said about, going to this external kind of media or answer outside of themselves is something that we always see. And it is important that there is an awareness around what it is that they're doing, there's an awareness from the parents to look for subtle changes that are happening with their child, whatever age they are. They don't have to be 15.
Mm-hmm.
I know as we're doing this today, that the highest demographic age group is 11 years old for mental health, and a serious situation there. So as a caveat, if anyone needs support with mental health, like please reach out to your community and get that support, especially if you're suicidal. But it's not even just kids. Like there's adults that are in a situation today that they're experiencing extreme anxiety. And I know for you, you have some familiarity around that. And if you could, just give the audience a little bit of background on how that came to be for yourself.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I'd kind of started age 15 with panic attacks, and unfortunately, and I urge you, if you do suffer from panic attacks, to do take some form of action, because when you don't, they become more frequent. Okay, so your body responds quicker and quicker into that state. So I carried this through life. I worked in sales. I had quite a stressful job. I met my husband, and we have two stepchildren. Or I have two stepchildren, his children, and our life was busy, chaotic. We then wanted to have our own family, and discovered that we couldn't, that we were suffering from infertility. We then fell pregnant, which was an absolute miracle and blessing. And I have my daughter who's 11, actually. You were mentioning that age group. And then we went on to try again and started down the IVF journey. And again, I mentally could not cope with the process. Physically, I couldn't cope with the process at that point. And I decided to stop that process, which kind of just caused me to kind of spiral downwards into this state of depression, anxiety. I had already been suffering with chronic illness in the form of vertigo, various aches, pains, thinking I was going to black out. I had like every possible condition, symptom you've probably ever experienced. I'd been backwards and forwards to the doctor constantly over those years for various things. And it wasn't until I got to that point and had that breakdown that I decided that, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to start antidepressants, and I can't do this anymore. So I contacted the doctor, and I took that first pill because I was taking panic attacks at the school gates. I was feeling like I was going to pass out. It was really horrid. And I took that first pill. My husband was actually out that night with a friend, and I took one of the biggest panic attacks I've ever taken. I ended up on the phone we have in the UK, it's called NHS 24, and it's like a 24-hour emergency service. So I called them because I was kind of having palpitations. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was going to die. And it was just a really, really severe panic attack. So from that point, I went into a state of just feeling numb, depressed, low. I was bedridden for about a week. I didn't speak. I didn't really eat. I remember once looking at the TV, my husband saying, "What are you even watching?" And I had no idea. I wasn't even present. And at that point, I thought, I have 3 beautiful children here who need me. And this is not the life that I want to lead. I do not want to be numbed through my life. I want to be there and be there for them. And I started at that point, as I mentioned, I was bedridden, so with vertigo and things. So I would listen to affirmations from Louise Hay. I would put my headphones in and I would lie. And that was the time that I found peace. I would listen to meditation after meditation after meditation. And that was the real turning point. Then I started to look into natural solutions and energy healing and Reiki healing and acupuncture and all these things that I had actually experienced in that 20-year period, but hadn't really stuck to or hadn't really kind of, kept going with. And then it wasn't till that point that I thought, you know what, Susie, let's do this. And I layered things bit by bit. I drank more water. I went to, sleep at a better time. I meditated every day. And then I would add something else, vitamins. Then I would add this. And then that got to me where I am today, which I'm absolutely love and adore my life. And I support other people to come through what I have been through anxiety and stress and depression and overwhelm. I've done work in the past with children as well. But unfortunately I can't see everyone and support everyone. So I kind of moved away from that and predominantly work with adults, although I do energy healing with children still. So yeah, it was a really dark point. There had been many dark points, but that kind of was the darkest point. And had it not been for that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And had it not been for that, we were speaking about signs, my mum developed cancer. That would have been she passed away 3 years ago and a year and a half before that. But, had I not had that dark experience myself and dove into meditation and yoga and mindfulness and mantra and prayer and all these things, I would not have coped with that experience.
Yeah. There's so much I want to ask you, because there was a lot there that you gave us. And if I could, I'm just going to go back to when you're in this really dark place, because as you said, you were in this state where you couldn't even talk. You were just so disconnected, and you just weren't even present, as you said. And then at some point, you have this thought around your children and how much your children need you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, there was this conscious decision to just make this alteration in what it was that you were experiencing in that moment in time. But for someone who's listening right now, that's in that dark space that you speak of, what are some words of advice that you would have for someone in that place today?
Mm-hmm. That there's always a ladder. There's always a ladder that we can climb to pull ourselves out of that hole. It can feel like a really dark pit, but it literally is step by step. Maybe it is, when I first came out of bed and I couldn't really walk very far, I would just take my mum's arm or my husband's arm and walk around my garden. Yeah, it wasn't a big garden. It was a tiny garden. But doing that, and it's just, don't walk before you can run, but just small steps. Maybe it's just you drink a glass of water and hydrate yourself. Maybe you make one home cooked meal a week if you're not home cooking, or, just know that there is always something that we can do. There is always something more. There is always an opportunity. And I think, yes, seeking external support, I highly recommend people do that. However, you need to want to do it for you. I don't know how many times my mom, my husband, everyone told me, oh my gosh, you're so stressed, you're anxious, here, read this book, color in, mindful coloring, or, gifting me all these things. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Not until you can't move. But you have to want to do it for yourself. And you have so much more support and strength inside you than you can ever even comprehend. When you think there's no more, there is always more.
Yeah. And I like the idea of the ladder and taking that step by step, crawling out of the hole like that. It's something that, I think when I look at, my own personal journey and what I've been through, and people have always asked me, how can you be this person? But part of it is that it's a conscious decision to look towards the light.
Yeah.
And not be in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conscious decision to live with gratitude. And for you, it was your children.
Yeah.
You know, you had this appreciation and love for your children, and you knew that they needed you. But even if you don't have children, I mean, I was, you know, a young adult. I didn't have children, but I knew that there was a greater purpose for my life. I knew that there was a reason that I'm here. But there's a reason that every single soul is on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's an absolute reason. So whether it's your children or something that is ahead of you that you're about to do, there's a reason you're here.
Yeah. And you mentioned gratitude there, and that's actually something that really supported me even whilst I was bedridden. And it's something I urge every single person, every client I work with, you know, children, adults, to practice, is to have a gratitude practice, because that will begin to build on these, you know, if you want to go sciencey, positive neural pathways in the brain, but equally it allows you to find peace in the present moment. So, and by being grateful, it doesn't have to be anything big. Like I remember being in bed and my husband feeding me mango, like that week that I was there. And I remember thinking, this is the tastiest piece of mango I think I've ever tasted. It felt so good in my mouth. And I started my gratitude practice then, and I would write 3 things each day that I was grateful for. Maybe started off at one thing, and it wasn't easy because you're lying in bed and you're like, well, excuse my language, this is pretty crap, you know. But, you know, there is always something. Maybe it's just like, oh, my pillow feels really comfortable, or I managed to walk to the toilet myself, or I had a shower today, or I got up today. You know, there is always something to be grateful for. And the more we look for these mini miracles within our day, the more you can see. So gratitude is something that you can have around the dinner table with your teens, with children. It's mind-blowing the things that they come out with that they're grateful for, you know, so heartfelt. And it's typically not things like their PlayStation or their Xbox. It is things like, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head, or I have a mom or a dad or a brother or a... So yeah.
Yeah, gratitude is so, so important. And I know, you know, earlier you talked about that energy level just being very depleted, and to the point that it was effort just to get out of bed. It was effort just to get yourself outside and take that short walk to the garden and walk around the garden. The energy, you know, people really underestimate this energy that we have as human beings. And when our energy is really, really low, like it does constrict our cells, you know, so living in this higher peak state of energy opens us up to love. It opens us up to so many things and puts us in this state that we didn't even know we could live in. And we could, it is a choice. So being in that higher vibration and making a choice to be in a higher vibration, you can switch that on in such a way that you're in that peak state. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And a lot of times I think it's your just changing your thoughts, changing the way that you're looking at things, taking something and looking, you know, literally turning it inside out and turning it into a place of a positive instead of a negative, right?
Yeah.
And rewriting the script. Is that something that was helpful for you? Like what was your script and how did you change it?
Yeah, my script wasn't good. My script was horrific. I spoke to myself in really detrimental, punishing, horrible way. And when I flipped the script originally, I didn't believe it. So I didn't believe that I was worthy. I didn't believe that I was beautiful. I didn't believe that I was brave or confident or bold or any of those things. But I kept telling myself, and I told myself over and over and over, I didn't believe it, as I said. And, you know, but it drowned out the noise of the negative just by thinking, and I would pick an affirmation each day. So for those of you who don't know what affirmations are, they're positive statements that we say about ourselves that are present, such as I am beautiful, or I am confident, or I am abundant, or healthy, or whatever. So I would pick one each day and I would just repeat it. Anytime that voice came into my head of you're so stupid, or you're always going to be this way, or you're a waste of space, or I would flip that with I am healthy, I am strong, I am healthy, I am strong, I am healthy, I am strong, or whatever I needed at that time. And slowly I began to recognize, like, hang on a minute, like, that other voice isn't very nice, and it's not really who I am. But that it's a whole journey of self-love, and a lot of people can think, eye roll, love yourself more and everything's going to be good. But it's so true, because if we are not in that space of loving ourselves, we cannot gift that back out to the world. And so much of the pain around us is caused by fear instead of love. And I know that everything you're doing is to spread that message of love and hope. And we can only really do that authentically if we do it to ourselves first and show ourselves first. And I think that was the element I struggled with as a mother and a wife, was that I was important, that I was more important almost than everything else for me anyway, because without that, there wasn't anything.
Yeah, and that self-love is the key to so many things. And people really underestimate that, because they may think that they're being selfish. They may think a lot of things, especially mothers, because mothers are giving so much of themselves that they feel guilty if they're doing something for themselves. So when you look at self-love, it's like, well, I can't give myself this extra time, this extra attention, this extra anything, because then I'm taking away from my children or my husband or my family, whatever it may be, fill in the blank. And the reality is that that's not true, because when you do take care of yourself, and as a mom, like as a mother myself, I had someone tell me this piece of advice that I wish I would have known when I became a mother. But she said, do you take 20 minutes every day just for you? And when she said it, I looked at her like, I don't have 20 minutes. I don't have 20 minutes because I'm giving everything I have to my entire family, and I have nothing left at the end of the day. But then when I heard myself say this, it was like, whoa, like I really need to take a step back and reassess how I'm spending my time, because I'm depleting myself of taking care of myself by having that thought process.
I think another valuable piece of advice that someone gave me, and I wish I could remember the person, but I can't, along kind of similar lines, and especially for mothers or parents, is that we are the ones that are setting the example for our children. Would you want your child to feel as an adult how you currently feel? Or would you like to gift them the opportunity of feeling free and full of love and energy and hope and confidence and all those things? Because that's what they're witnessing. They're witnessing our behaviors is what forms their behaviors. So if we're not demonstrating love, we don't want our child to be telling themselves in their head that they're stupid, or, you're ugly or fat or whatever, we wouldn't want that. So it's imperative that as adults, not just parents, but even adults who are exposed to other children around them, that we demonstrate what that can look like. And that took me a long time to get. But when I did, my children now appreciate if I'm meditating, my daughter will come in and say, oh, sorry, mommy, it's okay, I'll come back later. That takes time though, because, for them to understand why it's so important to you. But yeah, and then sorry, I'm like jumping about. I could chat to you for so long. But yeah, one of the things that you'd mentioned before was about energy. And I think just now, and this is something we briefly chatted about before, I think it's imperative for people to think about what they're consuming with regards to social media, with regards to the internet, with regards to the news, because you will be picking up and receiving all that energetically within your body. So other people's fear, even the people around you, fear, worry, anxiety. So it's really important that you, one, protect yourself from that as much as you can, and two, that you recognize that it's not all yours to carry, that you can take some quiet time in nature, or, in meditation or prayer or a bath or whatever, just to find that quiet away from the chaos that's currently going on in the world.
I love that you're bringing this up, Suzi, because this is something that I just talked about a little while ago on the radio show about disconnecting and disengaging from this negativity that we're exposed to. Yeah. And the news outlet and what is bombarding the globe is really, really something that is really weighing on people in a very negative way. And I just, I really make a plea to every person: if you're feeling this energetic effect in a negative way, make a very conscientious decision to not engage in it, because it is bringing your energy level down. It is bringing you into a place that you're not living your authentic true self, and it's making you feel powerless.
Yeah.
And this is where I think our conversation today, it really does highlight that when we feel powerless, we actually do have some control and some power over ourselves, even when it feels out of control outside of us. Mm-hmm. So I think back where I was a little girl and the adults had the control of everything in my life. That's how it is when we're children. They have the control over what we're fed, how we're clothed, the roof over our head, really every single thing in our life. But you know what? Even though all of this stuff was happening around me, and it wasn't good, I mean, most people have a sense of who I am in my story. It wasn't necessarily good. But you know what was good? Was when I connected with Mother Earth, when I connected out with the organicness of Earth, Mother Nature, being out in the sunshine, breathing in the fresh air. So even if you're in lockdown, you can open up your window, even if it's winter, and breathe in that fresh air. You have this kind of control, and just doing that will change the chemistry in your body and give you a new sense of life that you weren't experiencing a minute ago. So there are things that you can do, and I just encourage you to do the things that make you feel good, like sing and dance. When we were children, we had no responsibilities. And the reason that we cry when we see these Zooms and we see children singing songs is because it brings our mind back to when we were children and we were free of responsibilities, and we could just live in that space of freedom and really feel it in our bodies and really feel it in our soul. But you can capture that as an adult. Like, you literally could capture that right now, just turning on music that brings you up, whatever music that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, totally agree with that. And that can be one of those steps on that ladder, if you're feeling flat, is to raise your vibration in that way, through music, through dance, through just, listening to someone inspiring, shifting. I always laugh at this, because when I was kind of really anxious and worried and all these things, and you feel powerless, I remember driving the car one day, and I used to always feel like I was going to black out when I was driving. And I remember using affirmations as I was driving, and there was a song on the radio that I didn't really like, and I'm driving along, and then I thought, why are you listening to that song? Why don't you change the station? Like, you actually have the power to decide to press that button and just change the station. You don't owe that person anything. And I think that's the things in our lives. There's always an opportunity to change the station. But yeah, there might be a consequence to whatever action you take, but there is always a choice to try something different, or to shift that vibration, or to make that little step. And often when we're in that state of overwhelm or depression or anxiety, we think there's nothing that we can do. And there is always something, as you say, even if it's just putting on a favorite song or whatever it is for you, and just shifting out of that energy.
Yeah, and it's really, you just kind of trigger something for my thought process, because it's interesting, because we're in the holidays, and I know there's people that are like, well, how can we celebrate the holidays when the world is in the state that it's in? And there's all this negative stuff that's happening. And isn't it interesting that when we turn on our music of the holidays, whatever that is, how we just change, like we're transformed into all these memories of whatever it was that were happy for us, the people that we were with or whatever. So I think as a way to get connected, it's really interesting, because, as we go on in years, we lose people in our life. We lose the ability to spend time with them. And this global pandemic has really forced people to be very central, within their household. They don't have the ability to connect. But isn't it interesting how music connects us with people who have passed? And if you just put your arm, or your hands rather, over your heart space and listen to that music, how you connect with them, right? Like you connect with them. So I encourage anybody who's feeling lonely like that, like connect. Like you were saying, you don't have to have the physical presence. Of course, we all love that. But if somebody's passed on, you can still connect with them just by doing that, and give that heart space, that love and light and energy that you didn't have a few minutes ago. That just came to me, so I need to share that.
That's beautiful. No, I love that. And I think we're often gifted those signs, aren't we, through music. My sister and I were discussing this recently of, from my mum's passing, and often we'll hear songs and it'll remind us of her mother, or just at the right time, and sometimes they'll be funny and sometimes they'll be emotional. And yeah, it's a beautiful way to connect.
Yeah. And, it's interesting, because as Retreats of Peace was brought together, I was actually told that I was supposed to ask each of my, guest speakers, if I found their earth angel feather on the ground, what would their message be? And initially, my initial reaction was like, oh my goodness, like universally as humans, we all know that we are interconnected somehow. And we look at these signs to reassure us of, that they're with us, right? So for some people, that's a feather on the ground, or a cardinal, or, something. And it's interesting, because I've had people in my journey say to me, well, do you really believe that they're with you? And emphatically, 100,000%, I say yes, because I know they're with me, like they're with us, they're here. And I wonder too, like when you were in that dark space, did you feel that you were like, I don't know, like, did you feel like you were alone, or did you feel like there was more, with you?
Yeah, I think for me, the times where I felt closest and at most peace were the times when I was in meditation, and when I allowed that quiet to come in. And even this week has been really busy and quite full on. And I sat down on my meditation pillow the other day, and I just lit a candle and I sat down, and tears started to flow from my eyes, but it was tears of absolute love and joy and gratitude and appreciation, that in that space I knew that there was more, and that there was support around me. That, and I mentioned this earlier, we don't have to figure it all out ourselves, that if we surrender and stop getting in our own way sometimes, just to slow down and to go for that walk in nature, and to just breathe, as you mentioned, or to have your hands on your heart and breathe and just allow that quiet space where you. So for me, I felt most connected when I was on my own, and I felt most supported in that space, which is obviously quite interesting. And that's why I'm saying, yes, reach out for support from other people, but ultimately it's within you. That strength and support is within you as well. We just need to allow ourselves to drop into that quiet space, and particularly around these times when we're constantly exposed to media or everything that's coming at us currently. We need to just allow ourselves to be like, okay, I need to step back from that, as you mentioned, disconnect. I think, I can't remember if I wrote a blog about it or a post or something, but that disconnect to reconnect. So it's like disconnecting from everything so you can reconnect with yourself, as you mentioned, your authentic self, and how, to check in, okay, like, am I comfortable with this? How am I actually feeling? How do I feel mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Check in with yourself.
Yeah. And Suzi, if you could, take us back when you first started meditating, because I know some people, they really get turned off by that word. Like, that just freaks them out because they don't know what it means. They don't know what to do. So what did that look like for you? Like when you first started?
Yeah, so a lot of my meditation, not so much in recent years, but previously, was self-taught via things like YouTube, or being at yoga classes at the end of a yoga class and doing a meditation that way. So I've heard like every excuse with regards to meditation as to why people can't meditate, and it's not for me. But I've literally taught from 3-year-olds up to people who are retired, in their 80s, meditation. And it is a gift to yourself. So know that you can meditate, and there's so many different types and styles. So for me, when I first started, it was literally listening to guided meditation. So kind of like listening to a story, and I used that time just to drown out the sounds in my own head, to allow that opportunity for peace and relaxation and stress relief in my body. But now meditation can be running, it can be walking, you mentioned dancing. So a lot of people think they can't meditate, but anything that has any form of repetitive action you can get lost in. So I have a friend who's an artist, and she'd said that, like, I can't meditate. And I'm like, you do. Every time you pick up that paintbrush and get into that beautiful space, you're in meditation. So yeah, it can be running, it can be just walking and not taking your phone with you, just really being present. Or even in a conversation with someone, just being really present. You can bring in that mindfulness aspect of things. So don't be turned off by the word. You don't have to sit cross-legged in a cave and there's so many different styles of using your breath or dance or song, or it's all.
Yeah. And the thing that you said that was so on point is that for each person, I think meditation looks different. Mm-hmm. So if you are doing something repetitive like art or music or whatever it may be, that is your meditative, space, your sacred space. And it's not scary because it's what you enjoy. It's part of who you are. And, it's uniquely gifted to you. So, and some people, they may need additional support And taking, the guided meditations, I think, are wonderful, especially at the end of the day when you just need to disconnect and disengage. I think they're a wonderful tool just to help you really get your body to settle and relax and disconnect from whatever's happened during the day. But and especially in a world right now where we're living in this high peak stress state of discomfort in such a way that, previously to 2020, it was a state of discomfort, of stress based on day-to-day activities. But this brought it up to a whole new level because there was these additional layers that have been put onto people and really, like I said, outside of their control. So just identifying that and separating it out, compartmentalizing it is so, so powerful because it does allow you to get back to where you were and be able to handle things in a different way without taking on literally the world, right? Yeah. Without taking that on. So it is an adjustment. And I really love your tools to use an analogy of a ladder and just climbing out of the hole. So anybody listening that feels like they're in this dark hole, I love the idea of the ladder, but for me, my saving grace when I was in darkness was always to keep looking for the light. And that literally meant do the things that will keep you in the light. Literally open up your windows, let that sunshine in, literally get outside into the sunshine, like literally go into the light where you're in a healthy, organic state and replenishing your body with Mother Earth's properties of healing, just healing properties, but also making a decision that you're healing your body moment to moment. So to your point, drinking the water to detox the body of this negativity, eating the good foods, what is it you're putting into your mind, all of these different components, and taking care of this vessel that you travel in, doing yoga or some sort of exercise and allowing your body to, again, expel the toxins that we're continuously being bombarded by around the world with this pandemic we've been living in. Yeah. Suzi, I'm so, so grateful for your company today and having this conversation with you. And I'm also wondering if you had any other words of guidance. I mean, we are doing this wonderful signature talk today, Be Free. Mm-hmm. What other words would you have for our audience today?
I think it is to recognize that change is ever present. Life is transient. You will not be stuck where you are if you take that step. You mentioned turning to the light, and there's a beautiful it's a Native American Indian blessing, and I can't remember it fully, but it's about facing the sun so that the shadows fall behind you. And I think that ties in so nicely with what you've mentioned about, looking for the light, that there is light around us, and just searching for what that may be, whether that's through, you mentioned gratitude as well. And face the sun and allow the shadows to fall behind you so that you can show up in this world and be your authentic self and shine your light so that you can enable others to do the same.
That is so powerful, and I'll have to look for that one because I think that's beautiful. And it's so true, though. It really is, because if you're living in darkness, you can't grow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like a plant, we have to give it sunshine. We have to feed it water. We have to nurture it, take care of it for it to grow. So you really do need to do everything you can and do everything you can to heal and to grow.
Mm-hmm. And start with those basics, like you mentioned, water, water, rest. All these things that people tend to forget about that is so important: what we eat, what we drink, what we consume. And, if you start there, then Yeah, the transformations can be huge.
Yeah, and I think for some people, that idea of drinking water is hard because they've been so used to drinking other things and not really detoxing their body with water. So the idea of drinking water is like, oh, I don't want to drink water. But if you do a technique where you're putting a reminder, so maybe it's a reminder in your phone where you're getting an alert that every 4 hours drink water. I think that's a start. But I mean, part of drinking water is we need to drink half of our body weight in water every single day.
Yeah.
And if you're not drinking half of your body weight in water every single day, then you are, building toxins in your body. So it's really important to flush those toxins out, because we all know that when we're storing toxins and stress, that this can manifest into diseases and other things that we don't want. So we just have to be super careful with that. But yeah, drinking water is huge. It's really, really huge. And I just encourage everyone to do more of it if they can.
Sure.
Yeah. So, okay. So I do ask every one of my speakers, if I were to find your earth angel feather on the ground and I picked it up, Suzi, what would your message to the world be?
That there's always more strength within you, that there's always hope. And yeah, that well of strength within you is deeper than you will ever know. So don't ever doubt it.
I couldn't agree more. People underestimate the strength that they have, and it's amazing, the inner strength of a human being and their soul and their spirit. So I love it. Suzi, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm so filled with gratitude that you've been with me today and so appreciative. So thank you.
Take care.
And that's all we have time for today. This is Catherine Daniels with Retreat to Peace, reminding you to live your authentic life with peace. And as always, retreat to peace. And we'll see you next time. How incredible was that conversation around anxiety? A lot of times I find just letting go and just resolving to be present helps to reduce anxiety in so many ways. Next week, I have a profound conversation with Kristy Martin. She comes to us with an incredible story around bringing herself to sobriety. Her topic, sobriety to self, is something that you're not going to want to miss. We have some pretty incredible topics in the coming weeks ahead. We will be talking to Destiny DeHaven, and she'll be talking to us about breaking through type 1 diabetes. We have conversations around motherhood as we go into spring towards Mother's Day. We'll also be having some wonderful conversations around just lifting yourself up and getting into your new space. I think as we go into our authentic space, it is more important than ever that we're able to shed the layers of us or the parts of us that no longer serve us. One of the things that is so hard for people to do is just to let go. It's one of the biggest questions that people often ask is, how can I let go? Because instinctively, they know they're hanging on to something that maybe is not serving them. And maybe they're not really sure how to release it. So as you learn to release things and let things go, you also open up space for things to come to you freely. This is often what we find when we do our breathing, when we're doing meditation. We learn that our body, as far as our breath, is a key sign of health and wellness, and is often a marker of our vitality and our energetic strength. So a lot of times it's our belief system that doesn't serve us that's holding us back. Those damaging stories that we tell ourselves over and over, just reinforcing those negative beliefs. Sometimes it's our pattern of behavior that also can come about due to what it is that we're thinking and can be the root cause of our emotional, mental, and physical issues. It's really important to think about the things that you can let go. As we go into a higher state of consciousness and ascension, the things that used to serve us will no longer serve us, and maybe we'll be shedding some layers again. And that's okay. This concept of letting go can be elusive a lot of the times, but also it's something that is really an antidote to freely healing and getting ourselves back on track as far as the freedom and the spaciousness within our body, our heart, and our mind. A lot of times just letting go, we're able to take in new things. We can release negative thinking. We can invite new thoughts to come in that are positive. We can often use positive affirmations to replace some of the old thinking. The mind is such a powerful tool, and if we're able to shift it from a negative thought spiral and turn it into something positive, we will start to experience more joy. Think about the things that you're telling yourself. Be mindful of them. Are they serving you as far as your joy? Are they serving you for healing? Are they creating the kind of life that you'd like? Be very mindful of this because your thoughts do manifest. And as you put that out into the world, it will manifest there as well. I hope you have a fabulous week. And if you're interested in joining any of our women retreats, please email at retreattopeacellc@gmail.com and we'll send you out that information. Have a wonderful week. This is Catherine Daniels with Retreat to Peace, reminding you to live your authentic life with peace. And as always, retreat to peace. And we'll see you next time.